This is Inside the Wolf's Den, an entrepreneurial journey with Sean and Joni Wolfswinkle.
Welcome back to Inside the Wolf's Den with your hosts, Sean and Joni Wolfswinkle. Today we have a special guest with us, Liz Faircloth. Hey, Liz, how are you?
Good. How are you both doing? Great to be here.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for joining us today. So just a quick bio on Liz. Liz Faircloth co-founded the DeRosa Group in 2005 with her husband, Matt. The DeRosa Group, based in Trenton, New Jersey, is an owner of commercial and residential property with a mission to transform lives through real estate. DeRosa has raised tens of millions of dollars, works with hundreds of passive investors, and controls thousands of residential and commercial assets through the East Coast. Liz is the co-founder of the Real Estate Invest Her community, a platform to empower women to live a financially free and balanced life on their own terms. Combined, Liz and Andresa have over 20 years of experience and a $130 million portfolio. The investor community has over 50 meetups across the U.S. and Canada, and an online community and membership that offers accountability and mentorships for women to take their business to the next level. She is the co-host of the Real Estate Investors Show and co-author of the Amazon bestseller, The Only Women in the Room, knowledge and inspiration from 20 successful real estate women investors. Liz has been interviewed for many articles on top-rated podcasts, including being a two-time guest on the top-rated Bigger Pockets podcast and the Best Ever Show. On the personal side, Liz is an avid runner, has completed several triathlons and marathons, has two adorable children, and is a New York Mets fan. Liz, that is quite a bio. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. Excited to have you really on the show. And I really want to kind of get started. How did this real estate journey get started for you?
Yeah. So for me, I was actually getting my degree in social work, getting my master's degree. I wanted to be a therapist. And at the same time, my brother-in-law handed me Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And, this is in like the midst of my studies and all that good stuff. So I'm like, I don't know, what are you giving me this little red purple book at the time. So, I trusted him. He was an entrepreneur, just had started a business, and I respected him a lot. He always gave me a lot of personal growth books. I was starting to get into like Tony Robbins and just reading kind of personal growth books. So I'm like, you know what? I should listen to him and read this book in my free time, which I didn't have any. And I did. And that kind of forever kind of shifted my thinking about life and the way we make money and all those sort of things. So I, at that point, I didn't just start investing in real estate. I actually had decided to get a sales job right out of social work school, which does not make any sense because that doesn't, make any linear sense. But I decided I loved what I did with social work, but I really wanted to build my own business, even to help people. So I said, let me get a job in sales and consulting. So, because that's one of the things he talks about in that book,
right?
Beyond the passive income and those kinds of things. And then simultaneously, a few years later, I bought my first property with my now husband, just a couple of years after reading that, after we both were starting to get professionally in our jobs. And we bought our first investment, which is a duplex outside of Philadelphia. So those two things, and then my husband getting on board as well at the time. My boyfriend, I gave him the book. He read it. We played cash flow. Then started taking courses and learning as much as we could, which then led us to our first deal.
Awesome.
Very cool. You mentioned the cash flow game. I remember the cash flow game because Sean and I were actually in college. We bought our first home at 19, but while all of our friends were out partying, having a good time, Sean and I were actually playing the cash flow game.
With people in their 40s, it was a little bit, and then us at 19. But
I know. It's funny, right? Because I feel the same way. Like, here we were in our 20s as well. And we were kind of like, everyone getting together on their weekends. And we didn't even live next to each other. I lived in New Jersey. He lived outside of Philadelphia. And the weekends we'd go to like the real estate investing club meetings, we'd be playing this game. I'm like, we had, but we wanted different things, right? Yeah. That's how you get different things in life. You don't do what everyone else is doing. So there's a testament to that, right?
100%.
Yeah. So did you, your career, did you start off in like single family and then progress into commercial, or did you just skip? Just curious, because that's the question I think we get asked a lot. It's like,
where do you start?
For
For some people, for some people, they have like a very linear approach. And I always say that because in this business, it makes a lot of sense to get good at something and then to really get good at it and then move on to something else. That's not what my husband and I did. We kind of dabbled in a bunch of different things, which I don't really recommend as like this effective strategy. But we did doing that. It really taught us what we really wanted to do more of and then do less of. So we had flipped a few properties. We bought raw land. We bought a commercial building, like pure commercial, like office type of building. And then we started doing we had multifamily, always had multifamily. And we were a little bit all over the place. We were a little diluted, I would say. And I remember this conversation with my husband. We kind of stopped the brakes and I was like, where are we having success? Because the flips were not going the way we wanted to. Flips are not I always say real estate, rentals are a forgiving business because I think buy and holds are forgiving over time. Flips are not. You can't get too many things wrong with a flip to not do well with it. It's not as forgiving, I would say.
Right.
Unless you're buying it for $1 and selling it for $500,000. But I don't think that's even in the realm of our possibilities. So at that moment, though, I remember having this conversation with my husband and we stopped the brakes and said, where are we having success? Because we were in single family, we were in office. So we said, our multifamilies, our small multifamilies. So then we really decided to let go of the rest, really zone in our multifamily business. And then we progressively grew from like small multi, 4 units. Then we did a 10 unit. Then we did an 18 unit. Then we did a 50 unit. And then we got into larger multi, like 200 plus. So it was very, we had a very like strategic approach to our multifamily growth because we let go of a lot of things that were not related, right? They weren't this, they were other parts of the business, but they just weren't what we were really having success at.
Yeah. And did you feel like if you were going to, like you had a new mentor or somebody that's coming to you for you to mentor them, how do you recommend people get started today? And it maybe depends on the investor themselves and where they're at,
and where their goals are. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's where we always recommend folks to start. I mean, we put together our own mentorship program because so many women, wanted something. We're asking us for something, and we put something together that I really wish I had. I really wish I was part of, because I think I would have made less mistakes, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, I think the biggest recommendation always is to figure out where do you want to be? Like what are your not only what are your financial goals, but starting with like your lifestyle goals. And I think that's a really important question to ask, even in like 5 years. Where do you want to be? What does your perfect day look like? Going broad really helps because then you can get specific later. But going broad really helps. Like what is it you're even after in life? So starting with that big question, that big why, that big kind of life question, lifestyle question. That would be my number one. Number two, then is what are your financial goals? 5 years, 1 year, what are you looking to replace your income? Do you love your job and you're just looking for, retirement strategy? What age are you and when are you looking to retire? Are you looking to just stop doing your job so that you could do what you really want to do? I mean, there's so many different ways to delineate. And then the next question is to know, okay, what are your financial goals? What do you have access to? Meaning, like, what are you bringing to the table? What are your personality? What are your skills? What money are you bringing to the table? What time are you bringing to the table? Real estate requires something. It doesn't require all of it, but it does require something. So if you don't have a lot of money, you might need time to put into the business. If you don't have a lot of time, you may need money to put into the business. So it all determines what you actually have to give and contribute. I always say that everyone has something to contribute. It's just a matter of figuring out what that is. And then the next question would be, how active or passive do you want to be? Because then we can get into specifics: single family, multifamily, which strategy, short term, long term, midterm. You can get into strategy in markets, but people go strategy markets way too fast, way too quickly. They don't even know why they need to be doing that particular strategy or that particular asset class because they don't even know their goals. And I think that's the worst thing that people can do. So I'm all about figuring out markets. I'm all about figuring out strategy, but I think it's just too soon to do that if you don't know your financial goals. Oh, and the last part was active and passive. And why I say that is so many people based on their goals may need a 10% return on their money. Well, you could be getting that a lot of different ways, and you don't necessarily have to go buy a single family home, renovate it. You can go passively invest with a lot of different companies out there, whether it's a multifamily, whether it's a syndication, whether it's privately investing with someone, and quite honestly, do much better than 10% or around 10%. So again, it all depends on those pieces, but then figuring out how active and passive you want to be in the business is also helpful. And then getting into markets and strategy and asset classes and types of property. I'm a big fan of doing it in that way.
Yeah. I love the answer. The something I wanted to ask you, and I know I didn't put it on the sheet to ask you, but we rarely get people that have built their business with their spouse. And so, other than Joni and I sharing our experiences, I would love to get your perspective on just maybe I know that's a very broad question and there's a lot of stuff that goes into that, but just maybe some
and maybe
things
the
you've learned.
challenges too that you've had to overcome working together as well.
Correct.
Oh yeah, there's so much that my husband and I are actually writing a book on it.
Awesome.
It's funny. It's funny because I think in so many ways, people are like, "Oh, I don't really work with my spouse." But if you're investing in real estate, your spouse on some level is involved, unless you're secretly taking your money and investing it. Right? It's not a business that if you're in a relationship that other person doesn't know about on some level and is supportive on some level, right? So I think it is incredibly important. And then you go the next strategy of actually working together and having roles together is a whole other level. We started out within the first month of me and my husband getting married in 2005. I decided to take that job in sales and consulting. My husband decided to quit his job. So he said he's going to do the business full time and I'm going to do it kind of like part time and when I can, right? So we did that for many years. Then I quit my job a few years later. Market crashed. I quit my job. Market crashed at the same time. It was great. And, and we just lived off our savings. So that was a fun couple of years. But I worked full time with him. And then I ended up going back to my job and then leaving it again. So I've had all these different roles within our business. And so I think the biggest advice I can give anyone, depending on if you're part-time, strategic, full-time with your spouse, I think the key is to continually know where you're headed, like have aligned values and goals. Yeah. I think that's what has always brought us together and held us together. I think the way we've done it and the way you can do it is where the differences come in. But even at that, you should have alignment. So that's something that's really important. And the way to do that is to literally, I think people should over communicate. If you're either going to over communicate or under communicate, I'd pick over communicating. Because in a lot of ways, I think so many things go wrong when there's not a alignment of communicating and talking about each other, talking about goals,
right?
And on a continuous basis, because it changes. Who we were in our 20s, now we've been married almost 18 years. Now it'll be 19 years this year. We're different. Not that we're different people, but we have different goals. Our goals have evolved. Who we are as people has evolved. Our financial the things that we're willing to do for money have evolved. So my point is that I think alignment is key. And then where are you going to be different? So where can you stay in each other's lanes? Where can you be in your lane where your spouse could be in their lane and really respect those lanes? So I'm a big fan of Rocket Fuel, talks about visionary and integrator.
Yes.
I'm a really big fan of all the different personality tools. Take as many personality tools as you can. Colby, DISC, Predictive Index, Strengths Finder, like all of these assessments. And I've taken a bunch last year. One is called the Print. It's not really well known, but it's powerful to know what your drivers are and things of that sort. My point in saying all this is I think knowing where you need to be aligned with like goals, vision, values, what you're even trying to achieve, why you're doing it. And then the differences come in of like where we different on skills, our expertise, and how do we respect each other's lanes and not crossover. And then beyond that, there's a lot of other things. I'd say that start there. That really helps.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's something that Sean and I are continuously working on. And, I'm sure you and your husband meet quarterly and annually, all these things to make sure that at the end of the day, you're still in alignment, right? You might veer off, but how do we come back, right?
Yeah, we had interviewed someone, and I thought it was very powerful. She talked about renegotiating the contract. And although we don't have a contract with each other and our spouse, although we do, like a marriage.
Yeah.
And if you have a business, you may have those roles written down. But I think we're continually, especially when new things happen, children, there's new phases of our lives.
Right.
The contract has to shift. And just a really quick story. We did that recently where we even wrote down all of the household tasks, because a lot of it was just unspoken things that we both did that neither of us really even agreed upon. And I looked at it, I'm like, I'm doing 85% of the household. Hold on. We both are busy. We're both building our businesses. We both have young children. So my point is that there's all these unspoken expectations in relationships, let alone working together. But then if you add that on top, there's a lot of unspoken expectations. And if you don't really speak the unspoken expectations and get it clear and renegotiate, frustrations and conflict just tends to creep in very quickly, and resentment.
Absolutely.
I love that. I'm going to do that. I'm not joking.
I just created a freebie. I just created a freebie, like a PDF. So I'm happy to share it with you.
Yeah.
Love that. Yeah, absolutely.
And how do you guys balance? I hate the word balance, but because I think there's seasons, right? Your business at times there's things that something got to be done, or like you have a big event coming up. Usually you're a little bit unbalanced because you're having to do all this stuff with that event. Correct. Or there's stuff with family that you sometimes get unbalanced. So how do you guys manage that, especially working together and as spouses, and then between work and life, I guess?
I think scheduling really important, like putting the big rocks on our calendar as a married couple has been the key. So what do I mean by that? Weekly planning, has been starting out like on a yearly basis, right? We do our years kind of like goals and things. And then we put in our calendars a monthly meeting together. And that's to talk about our finances. That's to talk about our upcoming trips. That could talk about like what's coming up for both of us, like goal that I'm trying to achieve, a goal that he's trying to achieve. And it also comes into play, like, where we can support each other's businesses and what have you. But that's a monthly meeting. And then the monthly then gets broken down to weekly to say, okay, what's coming up this week? We also incorporate, we have a goal of how many dates we want to have a year. So we have a goal of like 15 dates. We try to go away together quarterly, one night, overnight. And then we also, again, we don't religiously do all this, but this is all of our intentions, and we get it on the calendar. A morning date, like meaning we get up early, we do like a little reading together, and then we just talk about our relationship. We're not talking about business. We're talking about the kids before the kids get up. So it has to be early. But we put these pieces, like that works for us. A morning date, just dates in general, quarterly getaways, a monthly business conversation during work hours. That's not when the kids are around. That recipe over the last several years, we've played with different things. People do different things. That works for us. So if we can do that, then the unspoken resentments, like when I have my conference in June, I'm all in on my conference, right? I'm like maybe like 5%, 10% mom, like 10% wife, and I'm 80%, co-founder of this amazing community. That doesn't mean that happens all the time, but depending on the pendulum, right? So I also think knowing what each other needs during that time is really important, because I've had weeks that I've been like, go, like invest her. And I forget to thank my husband. Now people might say, well, you don't need to thank him for taking care of the kids. He is their father. Well, that's true. However, I know my husband's love language, and I know my husband's personality, and to just not thank him, but just verbally appreciate him and verbally appreciate what he's doing for me and the family while I'm focused on this. I need the same thing when he's away for a week at a conference. So I think knowing each other's love languages in the midst of all that allows like the 90-10 or the 80-20 to be okay with it. Not okay with it, to be peaceful with it. Because it's like, if you don't know that person's love language, you don't know what that person needs in the midst of like 90-10, resentment can can pop up in my experience. Cause we're both pretty verbal people. We both need those kind of verbal acclimates. And so I know that, and I forget it sometimes. So I need to remind myself. So this is a good reminder for me.
Yeah. No,
Awesome.
I love that. Love it. Well, I think let's talk about the investor community. I love what you're doing with that community, and kind of go through what inspired you to create it, and the goals for the platform.
And what it is.
And what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, happy to do it. So right around the same time, I think it's 2013-ish, we had our first kiddo, my husband and I. And I was home with him, and I left my work, the consulting job that I shared with you. I left that, kind of retired from that, was able to stay home with Zach. And I was really grateful for that, right? And I started to then get back into my business with my husband. And something there was just missing. I had this healthy child. I had this growing business with my husband. I left the consulting work so I can, focus entrepreneurial on something that we've, fully controlled. So like on paper, right, I should be really happy and grateful. And I was just really missing something. Something was not there for me. And I didn't know what it was. And over the next couple years, I was starting to figure that out. Like what was important to me? What was I passionate about? What was I purposeful about?
Mm-hmm.
And so I've always been passionate about serving women. And when I met Andressa, we became good friends. Initially, we both talked about that. She also had this shared kind of passion of supporting women. And then we'd keep talking about it. And, we went to all these events because we started partnering on deals. We did a handful of deals together, and we go to real estate investing conferences and things. And honestly, we always felt like we were the only women in there. We were always annoyed that women were not like keynoting. We're like, where are the women speaking? We were just always like annoyed by that, to be honest. So we're like, let's create something, because clearly it's needed, or we thought it was. We didn't really honestly know it was or wasn't. We just had this hunch, and we had this shared passion to serve women. And then you start to look into the statistics, right? Women outlive men, all these different things that, you hear what women talk about at cocktail parties, and you hear what men are talking about. I'm like, why aren't women talking about investing? But men are talking about a bunch of other things. So it's really interesting, right?
Yeah.
To delineate all that, the gender roles. But anyway, full circle, we decided in 2018 to start a podcast with the mission to empower women to live a financially free and balanced life. And so that then led us to creating a community, like a Facebook community. We've got 15,000 women in that Facebook group. And then that helped inspired creating meetups across the country, which was small circles of women. And then we put our mentorship program together, which was the first thing we actually charged for a couple of years into it, and really started to listen to what women wanted and needed. And this is for women who are doing 5 to 10 deals, looking to scale and grow. And then we put our Investor Con together, which was our annual event. Joni's going to be speaking at it this year. It's in Austin, Texas. Our theme is all in, going all in on, really it's inspired by the women's financial revolution. Just a quick stat, that women currently control $10 trillion of the economy. That's going to 30 trillion in the next 3 to 5 years.
Wow.
And at the same time, statistically, women don't feel as confident making investment decisions. So our community exists to increase that 29% to 90%. So women can feel comfortable and confident to make investing decisions, because when they do, they actually outperform men. They make great investment decisions. They're just not doing it enough across the board. So that's why we exist, and that's what we're up to.
I always thought Joni was smarter than that's how I was getting her.
I didn't say that, but
not saying it, but no, I think it's a wonderful community. Really looking forward to the event in June, and then you also have a regional that's coming up pretty soon as well, right?
Yeah, and in Austin. So we are excited about coming to Austin. By the way, I know we're going to be there twice. So, but yeah, we have a day workshop planned in February 10th, and this is for any woman that's investing. They don't need to have 5 to 10 deals. They could be beginning as well, but this is really designed for women. February is a time when all the excitement of January and goal setting starting to wean. And there's like the lack of focus and clarity starting to seep in for people.
Right.
Like, hold on.
Yeah.
I was really excited in January, but now I'm starting to be like, what were my goals again? So, and this is an interesting time for real estate. I think I've lived through so many different times, but you can thrive in any type of economy, but you need to know how, and you need to be strategic, and you need to get the right information and be surrounded by the right people. I do believe that, whatever that looks like for you. And so we put this workshop together to also help women say, okay, what are your goals for 2024? And how do you move towards them and achieve them, even in the landscape that we have right now of interest rates or whatever other challenges your local market's dealing with. So we'll have like mindful networking. We're going to do a session on actually financial planning. We have a couple of women talking about, are you overwhelmed by looking at your numbers? Meaning, do you know what's coming in and out if you even have one rental property or even your household income? To really get a handle on your income and expenses so you can thrive financially. So they're going to give us some really cool strategies around that. We're going to do a session on leverage. How do you leverage other people's time, money, expertise? And then we're going to do a live mastermind where we actually bring women in the front of the room and help them solve their greatest challenge that they're dealing with.
Ooh,
So we
I
really,
love that.
it's like unscripted, just
Yes.
and we go very deep. We don't go like, oh, well, then just look at a few more markets. We go like, what's coming up for you? Why aren't you looking at those markets? Like, we're very real, we're very authentic, and we go deep. So that's what the day is going to unfold, but it's all about getting women to moving towards their 2024 goals.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Where do they go to sign up for that or learn more about that?
Yeah, the our events page, we actually have that event on our events page. We have our Investor Con. We also have free events we do twice a month. So you just go to therealestateinvesther.com/events. And it's the first one. It's called our regional workshop event in February.
And all your meetups are posted there as well, like where they
Correct.
in the
Yep.
city. Cool.
All of our free meetups are there. So we have an Austin meetup. We have 4 actually in Texas right now. We might be adding a 5th, but we got a lot of cool things in store for our meetups this year. So
Yeah.
stay tuned on that.
Well, super excited on that. We'll have that on the show notes. But
Thank you.
Liz, like, what advice would you give to women who are interested in getting into real estate, maybe are feeling a little intimidated by the industry's traditional male-centric nature, those sorts of things? What advice would you give to them? Well, I know the first one is get to this regional event in February. There's going to be tons of awesome women, that are ambitious and are headed in the right direction. But what other advice would you give them?
I would say, so here's what we've found, because what's fascinating about, and I'm very honored to be in the position of being able to like interview over 400 women, right? We have thousands of women in our community. So I've gotten a chance to interact with a lot of women, and you start to see trends. And so what I would say to women is that don't allow gaining enough knowledge to be what propels you to investing. The knowledge will not make you invest or not invest. It won't.
Right.
It's the community piece that's going to actually propel, in my opinion, women to invest confidently. We all know where to get information. We could all Google how to flip a house or how to buy a rental property. It's not a lack of information that's the problem. It's actually too much information that's out there, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because it's overwhelming. Like, where do I go first? What do I do next? So I would say learn enough to know what kind of questions you need to ask, but then start getting involved in involved with a community that are like you. So find your tribe, and there's a lot of different groups out there. Find the group that you connect with. These are real people. These are authentic people, and they have your best interest in mind, and they're true to what they're up to. Even if it's a group you have to create, I don't care. I don't mind more competitors. No, I don't think there's any competitors. I think everyone's creating what they're creating because they see a need, and they're up to something that they believe is important. I think the community piece and the surrounding yourself with other women like-minded is going to propel women to take action. So whatever that looks like for you, I'm not attached to, really not. I'd love for you to come out to our events and our regional. I think it would be a huge first step for you. But at the end of the day, community is powerful, whether it's mine or someone else's or your own.
Right.
Because it's in the group atmospheres when decisions are getting made and movement is happening. And I could tell you all the different reasons for that. But you saw it last summer, right? They said that the incredible boost in the economy was due to women going out to see Beyonce, women going out to see Taylor Swift,
Right.
women going to see Barbie, right? They said women, Wall Street Journal, the title said women owned the economy this summer. That's what it said. So why did that happen? They weren't individually doing these things. They were doing them in groups. So there's a real power with women in groups. Now we just have to do the same thing on the investing side. And that's what we're up to, because you don't have to do it alone. Not just invest with someone, but learn with each other, connect with each other. And who knows, you could potentially partner together as well.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So
can you share? I think people that are listening would love to hear, especially women out there like, I don't know, or my husband's not excited about me doing anything, just wants me to stay home, or I don't know, whatever they're telling themselves the story. Yeah. Can you share maybe some success stories, or some people that have had success in your group, or somebody that maybe stands out, or something, or a group maybe? Yeah, but.
I remember one of our, so with our meetups, we started with one meetup, and Andres and I ran it in Philadelphia. And, it's funny, right? Because when you look back at things, you're like, we've now running a 500 person conference, and we started with, a 20 person meetup, right? So it's cool to see like your own evolution.
Yeah,
like,
that's awesome.
But anyway, so I can remember that. I remember one of our first meetups, Andres was like, all right, you do this. And I'm like, all right, Andres, you do that. And we divided and conquered. We were both there greeting everyone. And one of the women came in, and she's like, oh, I'm so glad to be here. We're like, we're so glad you're here too. She's like, no, you don't understand. This is the first night that I was away from my two kids. I have a 2-year-old, a 5-year-old. And I kept telling my husband, like, I need to get to this meeting. I didn't know much about it, but I just know I needed to get here, because I am so like, I need to get away from my house because I'm home with them. And, she kept going on and on. It was really cute. So we're like, we're so glad you're here. So at the time, I think she owned one rental property. And then seeing her progression, she, I want to say she has like 25 properties now. Or something in that ballpark. She's part of our community. She's part of our mentorship program. But it's so cool to see her evolve from like, this woman who like was asking for permission to get to this meeting to building this business. And she's working with her husband too. Yeah. And there was moments, I'm thinking about her because there was moments that she brought different things like, how do I really thrive with my husband? And this is working and this isn't working. All of us, right, are always sharing what's working, what's not working. But I just think that's a really cool success story. And she's been able to really impact her community, because she's really bought the properties in like kind of like a geographical area, and has really kind of improved the area along with it. And her kids are involved, her husband's involved. She's leading it, thriving with it, and really focused in on her own like niche, which is, more like the small multis and single family homes. So it's just really cool to see that. And I know when she got started, so it's really neat to see that to where she is now. And she helps a lot of other women do the same. So I'd say that's something that's standing out to me in my head. And she, she always says, she's like, I didn't do it alone. I had women to call and support, and
she had a community.
Yeah. Had a community.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of stuff that can happen in this business. I don't think it's rocket science, but I do believe it's a business that having people to call matters. 100%. Having support matters. It just does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One of the things, Joni and I have been involved in many masterminds, and some of the really good ones are the ones that, where people really are more vulnerable, and we're all doing life together. And so like,
take trips together.
But there's strategy, and like, there's all this like, and some of them, but then there's some that's like, okay, like if you make all this money and you're failing in your marriage, like what does it matter?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm just curious, like, I'm sure like in your groups, maybe I'm wrong. I'm just assuming, but, I would think women will be more vulnerable and will share like, hey, I'm struggling in this. And it could be totally nothing to do with real estate. Mm-hmm. But you're there as a community to share, where sometimes when you're in a group with like a lot of the masterminds we're a part of, it's 99% males. And so like, and they're like, sometimes it's about puffing up your chest and how much, how much you're making, how many units you got, all
of
that.
Course,
but
how many units you own, right? How many properties you
own.
Right.
But yet they're struggling in some area. But so I'm just curious, do you find that like that women are much more willing to share and help each other through life?
Mm-hmm.
No, absolutely. I would say too, like our 3 pillars that we really, we are focused on from a content perspective, from like conversation perspective, everything is always real estate investing and investing in general is key. But then, what kind of business are you running?
Right.
We talk a lot about that. And then there's like the self-care aspect of just, okay, you could be making a lot, building a business, but at what cost? Mm-hmm. And so many people, let alone, all I could do is speak from a female perspective, because that's all I, know how to speak from, because of who we serve and who I am, mm-hmm. is, the self-care part is probably the most important part, because you never want to compromise that at the cost of something else.
Right.
So yeah, we get real. I mean, I'd say also I speak a lot about what I'm learning and where I'm growing. It's same with Andressa. Mm-hmm. And I think anytime there's a mastermind, and we're not the people who have all the answers to everything, mm-hmm. but we're creating a community that there's a bunch of different go-to people, experts. And as you share your own vulnerability and you're sharing your own kind of like breakthrough, other women have this like openness to do the same. I remember on one of our masterminds, we do a lot of them Zoom, and we do a couple of retreats a year. And this woman was sharing a little bit about the appraisal that came back for a property. And you know mm-hmm. how a pain in the butt that is if right. you're expecting 200,000 and it comes back at 100, right? It's a big deal. And so we started talking to her, because again, there's always like a tactical way to solve a problem. And there's like this underlining kind of like, what does it mean?
Yes.
Type of mm-hmm. aspect that needs to get discussed. Meaning she said, okay, the tactical was, okay, how do I go back to maybe that appraiser and figure that out so I can get the appraisal number up and still refinance at a price that's going to make sense so I can do what I need to do, right? That's the tactical kind of problem solving. And there's strategy in figuring that out. We can figure that out. I always say that's the easier part to figure out. What was underneath it too for her was that she, after talking to her, asking her a few kind of investigative questions, but questions that are going to get her thinking, she was attaching her worth to that appraisal. Mm. Like her self-worth was that appraisal.
Yeah.
So that was, a deeper way to look at it, but that was what was coming up for her. And that was really, that needed to get talked about. That needed to get kind of worked through.
Right.
And then as she's kind of more of her best self, she could tackle that. Mm-hmm. Okay, what do I do in this situation? And I believe that's the case for a lot of challenges people are dealing with. There are two parts of the issue. There's two parts of it. Yeah. There's like this personal thing going on, what we're making meaning of it. And then there's like the tactical, how to solve it. And everyone goes to the solving of it. Like, I went to a meeting and they didn't like my plan for making this a short-term rental. This woman in our mastermind was crying about it. She wasn't crying because she got some negative feedback. Yeah. She was crying because she listened to all those people and accepted those things as herself.
Right.
Two very different things, right? So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does.
It does. Yeah.
We always say it's like peeling back the layer of the onion. And I think as we share our own learnings and growth and vulnerabilities, it allows other people to do the same. I mean, I'm continually learning and growing and making mistakes all the time.
100%.
So for me to not share that, or like, oh yeah, I got it all. No one has it all figured out. I mean, I don't care who you are. I'd say that too.
Yeah. Well, I love what you're saying here, and it's super exciting. I'm excited for your events coming up. But I have two questions for you. One of them, if you could go back in your early 20s, what advice would you give yourself?
I would say start hiring much faster.
Love it.
Start really putting the money into talent and people much mm-hmm. sooner mm-hmm. than waiting as long as you're going to.
Yeah. I agree.
We always think we can do a better job, or not willing to release control. And sometimes it's amazing how much further you can go, how much quicker. Further you can go.
I think that would be one of ours as well. And then the next one is, what is your next? What are you looking to accomplish in the next 5 to 10 years?
Just taking over the world. No.
You already have.
I would say 5 to 10 years, is, I always think of like my kids' ages. I don't know about you guys, but if someone says in 5 years, my immediate thought goes, how old are my kids going to be? No, I think for me, I really want to see, we often say that Investor is this global, intimate platform. and we're moving towards that. But I would love to see, I envision meetups across the world where we have this like worldwide network where women really are coming together and doing deals. Like women from Denmark are doing deals with women in Australia that are doing deals with women in the States. And it's just really, really worldwide kind of support. So that I would say on the investor side. And they were really making an impact in women's lives. And quite honestly, their investments have grown and their financial independence has grown, right? Significantly.
Yes.
I'd say for me in the next 5 to 10 years, I just want to continually, be my best self and have a thriving marriage, have 2 kids that I go on lots of trips with. Like I have a goal once a month to spend time with both of them. Like I do, like go to dinner with one and go get ice cream with the other. It's like, doesn't have to be all day, but little moments, right? With each of them. I'd love to expand that once they get older. We go like on trips together, like go hiking or just really cool one-on-one trips. That's a very big intention I have with my kids. And I'd love to do more in the community for young girls. I don't know what that looks like yet. I'm not sure what that looks like, but I'd love to do what we're doing for women and start to think what kind of programming and support can we give with women at the younger age.
Right.
So they're not hearing about this in their 20s or 30s. I mean, I have a daughter who's 6, so unfortunately, she's going to hear about this all the time. I think she is going to take over the world the way I'm pumping her up. But she created her vision board and she put the word boss on there. So so I don't know what I've created here, but yeah, no. I'd love to see that, whether it's nonprofit, for profit. I don't know that. I just want to see more support for young women with the work that we're doing, and I have to I need to noodle that a little more, but that's something that I'd love to see in the next 5 to 10 years.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, love it all. Liz, it's been an amazing episode. Love what you're doing for the Invest Her community and your events that's coming up. So please, guys, you guys need to sign up for these events. They'll be in the show notes. And I will see you there for sure.
Yes. So yeah, but we appreciate you taking the time to do this. And, I think you added a lot of value. And so we appreciate that. And so we'll promote the events coming up. So if you follow us, if you follow Joni on her social sites, she'll be promoting the events. So please stay tuned and please sign up. So and hear Joni speak in June.
June. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you both for having me. I really appreciate the time and appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome. Well, guys, please share this. If you got some value from it, please like it and rate it. And otherwise, we'll see you all next week.
See you, everyone.
You've been listening to Inside the Wolf's Den, an entrepreneurial journey with Sean and Joni Wolfswinkle. Tons of entrepreneurial podcasts are out there. Talking. But Joni and Sean are living it every single day. Their portfolio now includes many franchises and medium-sized businesses. We talk about the trials and motivators of successfully running a business. Join us again soon for another podcast. But until then, reach out on the website at InsideTheWolfsDen.com, on Facebook at Inside the Wolf's Den, on Instagram at Inside the Wolf Den. We'll see you again soon. This is Inside the Wolf's Den. We'll see you next time.